Okay. Hello and welcome back. So just this will be a live stream about me while recording a new course. So it will be about prestashop as a REST API and Nuxt.js as a front-end application. So I just want to share with you the process and how sometimes become really hard to focus and to produce something. Hopefully this will be enjoyable to somebody and inspiring. Okay, let's go ahead. Okay. Why not I just show you what's going on with the screen? Yep. So here I have main monitor, and this is the computer itself. Well, I have some nodes and stuff that I'm using, and that's me. Okay, let's go. So sound is okay. Okay, let's go. Hi and welcome back. So in the previous episode, we went through a big refactoring of the code in order to be able to pass the user pre-selected language to the API and request the API get the data with that language. But our system is still missing a big piece, very important one, which is persisting the user selection. So the problem today is when the user do load the page, quit, and go back, then everything is resetted, and he's proposed whether English or French, so something that potentially he did not select to have as a language. So the mission today is to persist that selections, so when he go back, then the website will be displayed on a valid selected language or valid language. All right, so starting point here is to jump into the pinia.vue.js.org, the official website of the official documentation of Pinia, which is our store. Okay. The official documentation of the management. Okay, come on. Anybody watching? No. That. So jumping to the Pinia official website and go to the plugins page, and right here there is pretty much everything we need to know about the plugins and the capabilities they offer in order to extend the functionality of Pinia. Okay, with that in mind, and really do invite you to check out this page, let's go back to our code. So what I'm going to do next here is I'm going to start by creating a basic plugins for Nuxt, so everybody know how to create plugins, hopefully. Here I'm going to call it Pinia Persist, and again the name is up to you, you can really call it whatever you want. And I'm going to start by exporting a default define Nuxt plugin, and this plugin do accept a callback as a parameter. So the callback do accept a whole context of the application, the Nuxt context, and let you do whatever you want. So before that we change anything because we won't need the whole context right now. This is stupid. So from this context, we have. Oh. Okay. So I would like to start by console logging the context just to show you what's inside, because later we are going to distract it into small pieces. We need only one piece. So here I'm going to jump back to the browser and open the console tab, and this is the context, a whole object full of different properties, and each property represents specific stuff. Okay, so in all this stuff, I'm going to focus into this $Pinia. So $Pinia is simply the object that contain the instance of Pinia, the store inside this whole context. This is why I'm going to alter my code, because I only, as I said, need the $Pinia, the instance of the store, to be used through this plugin. Okay, so the plugin is now ready. Well, it does something, it does console log the context, but it doesn't really fulfill our need. So let's go ahead and use $Pinia right now. $Pinia, as we said, is an instance of Pinia, so it came with pretty much all the functions that So $pinia is simply the okay. So $pinia is, as we said, the instance of pinia stored inside the context. So it came with all the functionalities of pinia, and one of them is the dollar. Okay, let's do this again. Let me just show you the screen. Maybe somebody will learn something from it. Maybe I need to switch the rear camera to get a better view. Somebody is left. So pinia here. So $pinia is, as we said, the instance of the store. Okay, come on, how can I say this? $pinia hosts an instance of the pinia store. So we can do something like pinia.use pinia plugin. Okay, so pinia plugin will be simply the plugin. This is at this level we are talking about Nuxt plugin, and this is what we are going to create in a second. It will be the pinia plugin. So little command here, pinia plugin goes here, boom boom, there you go. So wait a second. So this pinia plugin will be simply an async function. I'm going to give it a pinia plugin as a name, and it accepts a context. But pay attention, the context here is not the same context as the Nuxt one. It is simply of type pinia plugin context. So make sure to add the name, the type, plugin context, in order to get autocomplete and that related stuff. Okay, so here this will be what is this? So the returning type, we don't need this. And here make sure that has been imported correctly. There we go. So now we are talking about pinia, and we are managing stuff inside the pinia instance, and this is the pinia plugin. Okay, so with our system, the first thing I would like to do is to intercept any change that happen to the store, and specifically to user interface default language. So every time the user do change the value of this property, I would like to catch that value and store it into the local storage. Okay, so how we do this? I'll start by a little if statement. I'm going to say if process dot client, and I'm going to explain this while later. I'm going to find a first const here. So the first const will be default selected language. So how can we get this default select? It will equal to context okay, stop. This will be undefined for now. This will be undefined for now. Then later, and now we need to watch and subscribe to store changes. So I'm going to add a little command, subscribe to store changes. And how we do subscribe? Well, the question is very simple. We're having an await method here that do context dot store dot $subscribe. So this method will allow us to set up a callback to be called whenever the state change, and also return a function to remove the callback. Okay, so we'll be subscribing to it. Again, passing a callback, so this will be event of type subscription. This is a long one. Subscription, callback, mutation. And this do accept state tree as a type in terms of properties. and inside here we will do our stuff. So if, go to say if event dot events as any, because this is problematic, I'm going to face some problem with TypeScript, I'm going to cast it to an any. So if this dude so here I'm going to say if event dot events dot key. So the key will be simply the name of the changed property, and here it will be default language. If that is the case, then what I'm going to do here, I'm going to say local storage dot set item and default language, and let's set it to be default language, and for the value it will be event dot events dot new value. Here we go. So here we have some warning with TypeScript. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cast this as any just to avoid the problem, and this is the events, not event. Same things goes here. Here we go. Now let's go back and test this out. So by the way, all the plugins are auto-loaded here, so there's no need really to import them in the Nuxt config file. Okay, quick refresh, and let's jump into the application here. Let me empty everything. So now every time I do change, something happens. So here it becomes to true, but the default language okay, why is not doing what I need to? Wow, it's got all over the place. So if default language, if the key, I just need to debug this a little bit. Okay, this is a lot of bothering, you know. Don't mind, I'm going to disable it for now. Okay, thank you. Okay. So at this point, things are not working as expected. This is why I take a little break from recording. I'm trying to debug what's going on. So here I said in my code, when the key is default language, then you should execute that. But it seems like it's not the case. So here the key is default language, does not make sense. And here also target. Okay. Okay, at this point I think I will stop recording and restart everything from the ground up. So this happened over and over again, so it's okay. This is to happen. So this is actually the game. You just need to be patient, be focused most of the time, and don't get bothered really that quick. So let's listen at least to this. Okay, so 30 minutes just gone, boom, delete the video. And yes, yep. General output, recording. Well, let's redo this again. Okay. Okay. Welcome back to this new episode. So in the previous episode, we went through a big code refactoring. Okay. Hello and welcome back to this new episode. In the previous one, we went through a big refactoring in order to get this pre-default selected language. The user, what do you do select over here? We call, okay, shit. Hello and welcome back to this new episode. So in the previous episode, we went through a big code refactoring, and the idea was to get the selected default language and pass it through the call in order to get valid content. For example, if the user select English, then we need to get product and information and all that kind of stuff in English. If it's a French, then it must be in French, etc. But the pitfall of our system now is that this information is not persisted. So when the user do reload the page, quit and go back, then everything is resetted to the default and you just need to redo that selection once again. So the goal today is to avoid this misfunctionality and to introduce the local storage to the mix that will host something like this. So default language here, it will be something like 1, 2, etc. Okay, so with that in mind, let's go back to our mission. And here starting point will be inside the Pinia website, the plugins page that they do have a little article that pretty much explain everything we need to know about the plugins that are simply a way that extend the Pinia store, and one of these extensions, if you can say that, is to store the information to the local storage. So this is what we are looking for. Okay, so starting point here will be about, so our starting point here is to create a Nuxt plugin. So this is the very first piece that will, let's say, that will plug ourselves into the Nuxt, then Nuxt later will plug us to the Pinia store. Okay, so I'm going to call this Pinia persist, and again, you can call it wherever you want. And here I'm going to say export default and define Nuxt plugin. So Nuxt plugin do take a callback, and for this callback, it do inject an entire context. So the context, it's okay to have it, but it's a huge for this minimal functionality. This is why I'm going to distract it to $Pinia. I'm going to grab only the Pinia instance. This $Pinia actually contain the instance of Pinia, our store management system or tool. So we can do stuff with it. And the first thing I would like to do here, and the only thing inside the plugin, is to call the use method from the Pinia. And here I'm going to pass a function that will be this time the Pinia plugin. Okay, so I'm going to call Pinia a local storage, for example, plugin. And this must be defined somewhere else. So here I'm going to define a function, and it's preferable to be async function. So this function do take the context, and here pay attention, this context is the Pinia context, not the Nuxt context. Okay, so with that in mind, let's carry on with our code. Here I would like to define a little type, and this is really long type. So it's subscription callback mutation, and it take a type of state tree. and make sure that everything is imported from Pinia. Elsewhere, we'll be facing troubles. Okay, so now since we are inside the plugins, I would like to start by an if statement. So if context dot store dot, no, not store ID, but store, come on, store dot dollar ID here is equal to what? Is equal to user interface then I'm going to do this. So before doing anything, I'd like to console log the store. So before doing anything, I'd like to console log the context. Let's go back to the browser. Nothing to do, by the way, for the plugins that are auto-loaded. So now if I do refresh my page, go to the console here, I will see a little message saying at this point, this is the store. So we have app, we have options, we have Pinia, and we have store. So our target is the store. So we need to access the store in order to point to a property called ID. And I would like to make sure that I'm manipulating the store or the piece of store which is user interface. So if I go back to the console, you do see that we have another log for that store which is simply related to the one that is called user interface. So in my code, I'm going to say if dollar of or if context.store.id equal to user interface, then I'm going to do my code. So back to here, I'm going to put this into command. I'm going to say if context.store dot not dollar ID store ID, yes, equal to that, equal to user interface. Then I'm going to say, let's say alert or simply another console log, no worries, user interface. Yep, there you go. Quick formatting. And let's get rid of all these spaces. Lost this space. There we go. Now if I do a refresh once again my page, what? Well, it's non-defined. So here store.$ID equal to user interface. I'm going to log anything, so just going to log that. And here we have a little warning saying that this is not or does not exist on subscription. It's not direct. No, it's not. It must be, let's ask this, state tree. So let's go back to the browser, refreshing. Okay, sometimes things get really messy. So what I do is that I stop recording at that point and carry on with that part that got messy and trying to fix what's wrong. So it's a long process and a lot of hard work going on through these videos. And yeah, I think it's worth the money. Yep. So here I need to rewatch this part of the video and see where I did stop, where things start to get out of control, and record. Okay. Okay, the options are the getters and setters of the state. The app is no sense things. And what do we have also? We have this pinya, which is an array of some argy-bargy, and the store is our target here. So I'm going to go this point. So let's see. Okay, so with that in mind, let's go back to the code. Okay, thank you for the one who left a thumb up, and for the 2 people who are watching right now. Thank you, people. I don't know why you are watching such stupid things, but yeah, thank you. Okay. So with that in mind, I would like to do the if statement. So I'm going to say if context dot store dot $ID equals to user interface. I'm going to do another log here. It's free, no worries. So log, I'm going to say, yeah, anything just to test that everything is working. So there we go. So this is what we need. So every time something will happen to this store, we will have to trigger this code only for this piece of state. So what we are going to do when the change is happening at this level. The first thing is simply to watch the changes on the store. So once again, if this change happened on this piece of state, and more specifically on this entry, the default language, then we are going to fire a callback. So go back to our code. Now we can get rid of the console log, and let's see what we can do. So starting by defining a little content, starting by defining a little variable here, I'm going to call it default selected language, and it will equal undefined for now. And next I'm going to do context dot store dot subscribe. Can I do pinya dot subscribe? I'm not getting any help from this ID. So here we go. Okay. So now we are going to subscribe to this context. I'm going to say context dot store dot subscribe. So this subscribe method simply will subscribe to any change on this store, and it will fire a callback when something is happening. So here it will be a callback, so this will be an event, and this event will be logged right now. So again, we'd like to see what's inside before doing anything. Now moving back to the browser, console, and click on this boy here. So we do see that we have store ID, we have the events object, store ID is the one, and we have also the type direct. So let's go inside the events object. We have effects, so what's happening, and we have the key. So this is our target, and we have the new value, and we have the old value also, and we have the target. So the target is simply the entire object of the user interface entry. Okay, so once again, we have store ID and type. Okay, now if I do switch the language, which is the part that we are focusing on right now. So if I do switch the language, look what will happen in the console. Boom, we have the store ID and the type, it's okay. Then inside events, we have the key, set it to default language. So we need, now we know how we can do things to intercept changes on this default language. So I go back to the IDE, we can get rid now of this, and I'm going to say let's define the type for event. And inside this callback, I'm going to say if event.events.key is equals to what? Is equals to default language, then I'm going to do the following. I'm going to say simply local storage dot set item and give it a name, default language, and give it a value of what? Of events dot new value. Okay, we still have a lot of errors, TypeScript, we're fixing that later, but for now let's go ahead and test if this is actually working. So I'm pointing myself on the local storage on the application tab, and let's go. So here, if I switch the language from English to French, there we go, we have the ID, and let me get rid of this emulator because it makes things hard to see. And now if I change it back to English, boom, it's working as expected. English, French, everything is working fine. Pretty good. Now, the missing part now is when the user do reload the page. Yes, local storage would be there, but the language, selected language, is not what we are expecting to have. So if I do refresh, then I selected French, as you may see, ID 2, but here if I check this, we have English, so this is not okay. Let's go ahead and update this code in order to update the store when everything happening. So here I'm going to add a new condition, just enter this if statement, and here I'm going to say hydrate and like this word, the store. Okay, hydrate the store, it will be simply an if statement, but this time we need to make sure that our code is executed client side, because if you do local storage on the server side, well, this is an error, as everybody know. So it's server dot client if process dot client, then we are going to do this. So I'm going to say cast default pre-selected. So default pre-selected language will equal to local storage dot get item. So get item will be simply here the key that we did define. So if it's null, if it's not null, then I'm going to persist it into the store. So I'm going to say context dot store dot dollar state dot default language equal to default pre-selected language. Okay, so again, we have some warnings, but it's okay, be fixing that in a second. So let me make sure that everything is fine here. So here it will be undefined in case something went wrong. So I'm going to say if default language, then we simply update the store. With that in place, let's go back and play around. I'd like to start by defining this to my name. Okay, now, so inside the user interface, default language is 1, 2, 3. Now, if I do refresh the page, it will get hydrated. Not really. So let me make sure that everything is fine as expected. And if I do refresh my page and I do switch the language, oh yeah, Oh yeah. Ah, I know what's wrong. So it must be stored on store ID right there. Now, if I do refresh this page, here we go. We have my name defined as a value for default language. Okay, now let's go back once again. So here, if I select French, then it becomes 2. And if I check the store, it's 2. Now, if I put it back to English, it's once again 1. Here in the application, in the store, sorry, it's 1. If I do refresh my page now, we do see that it is set it to be okay. Wow, okay, at this point I can say that I solved the first part. The problem has been corrected, so the code is executed correctly. And at this point, I can say that I'm going to split this episode into 2 episodes because it started to become long. So we are above 10 minutes. And yeah, 10 minutes of code is kind of boring. So this will be a decision to split. And now just going to review what I've been recording, and if it's okay, then it's okay, you can move to the next episode. If it's stupid, then I have to delete everything once again and start recording. Yeah, so hopefully this video is kind of not really that boring. I'd like to thank everybody who is watching this live, or is watching this after being live. Yeah, I think I'm tired. So yeah, so the first video, so we have 8 minutes for the second one, and we have 9. So after editing, trying to crop it down to 10 minutes hopefully, and that's it. Yeah, it's hard. Thank you for watching. And if you missed the last video in this channel about PIN and persistence to the local story, then you go ahead and jump in the channel, watch it. I think I'm really tired. Just need to take a break now. Thank you for watching. See ya. I just need to stop.